Hey everyone, good morning. Doing this when I got an opportunity because it's the summer break, and for those of you that have followed me for 17 years, you know what that means. But right now it's about 10:30 a.m. Pacific on this. I think it's the 15th, I believe. Yeah, the 15th. No, that's the 15th. Yeah, it's the 15th. Yeah, it's the 15th. Sorry, 15th of July, 2025. And I wanted to come on here because I've mentioned this briefly at times here on the channel, but it just seems to be something that when it happens, you just gotta really really give your thoughts on the whole situation because well, here's what happened. Now I did get some content out yesterday. I did, but I only got one bit of content out along with the ones that are already set to premiere. The deathmatch tournament, and then the up conversion of one of my older videos. So I had a couple of videos set up and ready to go already. And then I had another video pop in as well after that, which was the Sledgehammer one, the almost 40 years later. Well, anyway, what happened yesterday is basically I was going to have, along with the two videos already there, I was going to have the Sledgehammer video. I was going to do the WWE, NBC, and AEW All in Texas videos, audio videos that is. I was going to all do them earlier in the day, get them out of the way. And that's, I don't have to do much in the evening unless I want to, or I can use the evening to set up for today. Well, what happened basically is I get up, because I've been getting up early a little bit and everything, going to bed and, just getting up early. I guess I'm getting my body, ready and adjusted to when I go back to work, potentially at a place I've been going to seasonally, in time for the Christmas season and all that. Well, long story short, I was up and I was laying down and I'm thinking, well, I'll just look at my, I'll look at my MetaQuest, if you will. I'll look at my MetaQuest 3S, the VR, look at the browser through that, maybe look at some videos, stuff like that and everything. And what happened was, as I'm in the middle of one of the browsers, I wouldn't say browser search, but I was in the middle of doing one of my AI image to video, text to video stuff, if you will. And what happened basically is all of a sudden the browser's going slow. And I'm thinking, what's going on? And then all of a sudden it says, it comes up, says no internet connection. It's like, what's going on here? So I go to the Wi-Fi settings and it says Wi-Fi connected without internet. And I'm thinking, what's going on? Now, I know that, we got a bill to pay and everything, and we're going to get that taken care of. But I'm thinking, what's going on, right? Well, I'm thinking, what's going on, right? Well, I go and look at my modem, and I see that the usually bright white light is blinking orange. And that usually means it's offline. It usually means it's offline. If it's red, that means it's something wrong. If it's blinking green, then it's basically saying, hey, I'm powering back up, I'm resetting, I'm reconnecting or trying to. Well, this went on for a while. And I'm thinking, okay, they might be doing maintenance and stuff. So I figured, okay, give it time. It went on for quite some time. A little longer, if you will. Now, of course, the first other thing I thought of outside of, they're probably doing maintenance and all that, and it's not going to be that long. The other thing I thought of was they disconnected service because of the bill, which shouldn't have been a situation. Well, turns out that all of Newman, and probably some parts in Gustine and parts in Crow's Landing, but all of Newman and parts, connecting to Crow's Landing and Gustine were without internet, cable, and the landline phones. Yeah. Now you might say, well, how can you say you didn't have internet if you have a cell phone? Now that's the catch. If you have a cell phone or you have one of those mobile modems or whatever they call those cell phone, straight talk, T-Mobile like modems and everything that are connected to the phone service, then you're fine. But what happened basically is that, like I said, all of Newman, because again, my initial thought was either maintenance or disconnect because of service, and I'm thinking it's got to be one of those, and I'm thinking, well, if it's the service disconnect, but just pay the bill or get it up to date. If it's a maintenance deal, okay, it's only going to take a little bit, but again, those are the first two things that went through my mind. But what also went through my mind is, wait a minute, it's the morning. It's the morning. It's seven, almost 8 o'clock in the morning. Usually they let you know when they're going to do maintenance, and they usually do it overnight. That way. Also, that way, basically, it doesn't disturb anybody because they know a lot of people are either on graveyard shifts at work or sleeping, in the beds, to get ready to go to work the next day. So they usually let you know when they're going to do maintenance, and that it's usually done overnight. Basically when you're resting, but like between basically 1 a.m. in the morning Pacific time to maybe 4 o'clock, Pacific time in the morning. That's usually what they let you do. They let you know by text, email, and all that, so that so that way you'll be prepared, and basically it's also letting you know we're doing this at this time, so you won't really have much of a disturbance and everything to what you're doing, because you'll be resting, and there'll be less of a chance of us having disruptions as well, trying to fix stuff or upgrade stuff. Well, like I said, okay, the first two things that went through my mind, like I said, was either maintenance or service disconnect. But then I thought to myself, well, wouldn't if they let us know, by email or the text, that was the situation? So I went on Facebook. I went on to the Newman Neighborhood Watch on Facebook. And I asked the question if anybody else's internet went out. And around the same time I did that, somebody else asked the same question. And we find out that apparently, and I know I'm getting to this 7.5 minutes in of this audio video, but apparently what happened is that there was an outage. There was an outage, that basically took out all of Newman, parts of Crow's Landing, parts of Gustine. There was an outage. But the question is, what caused it? And what caused it apparently was, as you're heading from Newman to Patterson, one of the final roads you drive by is Marshall. And right there on 33 in Marshall, according to what they said, there was no pictures, no evidence yet, but there was, word from people that were there or that drove by it. Apparently, there were some wires down. And this caused not one, not two, but 4 Xfinity trucks to show up to repair it. Now, you might ask yourself, well, how can some wires be down when it comes to Xfinity? That doesn't make sense. I know, but you got to remember, some of them are phone wires, so that might have caused the situation. We don't really know, but apparently there was some wires that were down, and not a lot of people, were happy about this. Not a lot of people were thrilled about this, because the work. Because get this, the work. A lot of them work from home and they have to use the internet, right? And the primary way they use the internet is the computer, Wi-Fi or Ethernet. That's the way they do it. Well, they couldn't do it here, or they couldn't do it that way. They had to probably go to the phone, or they had to go leave the house, like some did, and go to a Wi-Fi capable outlet, like Starbucks or McDonald's or wherever, to try to get the work done, because the internet was out. The internet was out. So, yeah, it didn't really sit well with people, especially if they got kids, because nowadays kids are entertained by what's on the tablet or what they can find on Netflix Kids or Peacock Kids or YouTube Kids and all that. Well, that wasn't possible unless the adult handed the kid their phone and said, "Here, watch this. You guys gotta deal with it. Deal with what we're gonna give you and watch this." Now, what that did do is it did open the door for a lot of people, including myself, to and members of my family, to go back to physical media watching. And that's what we did. One of my family members was going to watch Mork and Mindy. We have the complete series on that. And I was just siphoning through some movies. I was watching, some of Rise of the Beast, of Transformers, as well as I was watching the 1990 OG Ninja Turtle movie. And one silver lining I will say about this is it does give you an appreciation of knowing that, despite what people will say, and I say it with all due respect to people like John Campea and all that, despite what they will say, physical media is always going to be needed. It's always going to be vastly superior to even digital and streaming, because until they can come up with a solution outside of just downloading, something like that, not something like that, but outside of downloading, the movies and everything, until studios and outlets come up with something, that can be on par, on the same level as physical media is always going to be superior. End of discussion. And it's always going to be there, especially during such, certain situations like this. And one thing it gives you an appreciation of is the fact that physical media will always be superior in the fact that when you put the disc in and you let that laser in the device do its thing, the sound, the ambience, the sound, and everything, the quality is far superior compared to streaming. Streaming is trying to get there, there's no doubt. Digital is trying to get there, there's no doubt. But nothing's ever going to replace physical. And, situations that what we went through yesterday gives you an appreciation of that. It really does. Now, here's the thing. About that though. Just as, myself and I'm sure others were getting into the, watching DVDs and Blu-rays and 4K Blu-rays and all that, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon Pacific time is when everything came back online. That's when everything came back online. And basically, sorry about that, but like I said, what's crazy is just as, myself and others were getting into, watching movies physically again and all that, that's when the power, not power, but that's when the services come back on. And even though we were very appreciative, of the situation, it was still, there was still an outage, somewhere. So they had to take care of everything. Even though my service came back on and everybody else's services was coming back on, people's was still out. And again, what people were saying was a wire, some wires were down. But, here's what's crazy. So one of the things that is advised is to get credit. Is to get credit for the whole situation. And, well, you can talk to somebody or go online and try to get credit. Well, somebody went online and got credit. Well, not online, but somebody talked to somebody and they got credit all right. But you're looking at the duration of basically almost 8 hours, if you will, without service. 8 hours that people that use the internet for work and everything and education. That's that's 8 hours that they're not going to be able to get back. And yet you want to credit somebody for only $15? Now, I'll admit that the guy basically called when they should have waited, because he called right away in the morning. If they would have waited, it would have been different. But really, you're just going to credit $15, for something that, was, almost an all-day thing, an all-work day thing. That don't make sense. That don't make sense to me, if you will. But yeah, but yeah, honestly, this was a situation to where, even though some people came out and said, yeah, it wasn't their fault, it was wires down. The question has to be, okay, how did the wires come down? Was it a bird? Did some birds fly into it or land on it and weaken it? Did somebody sabotage it, decide to, cut it, climb up the poles and cut it because they wanted to be a-holes, or they're mad at the fact that, we have, somebody, running the country they don't like, or they're mad at the person that's leading the state. We don't know. Or they're just doing it because they want to be a-holes, be trolls, be punks, if you will. We don't know. Could have been that somebody let off a firework, because they still do that. They still let off fireworks and that. Could a firework gotten into the wires and caused them to fall? We don't know. But like I said, it did get restored. But what's interesting is it didn't get fully restored. Get this. It didn't get fully restored until about 7:30 this morning. Yeah. It didn't get fully restored until about 7:30 this morning. And I'm assuming that if I can get some credit for me and my family, I have to let them know it happened between 7:30 yesterday and today. So we'll see what happens. But what's crazy about this too is, I think a lot of people, and maybe it's just me putting my conspiracy theorist hat on. But I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Xfinity did this on purpose. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, I'm not saying they did. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did something on purpose. Just so they can have an excuse to do maintenance. All-day maintenance. Yeah. You don't think that's possible? It is. Because companies will say, hey, we want this done today. I don't care if it takes all day and it disrupts people. Make something up. Say this happened just so you can get the job done. That's reality. That does happen. And honestly, there's a lot of people that feel, that that's what occurred. Because again, we don't have no answers to how those wires came down or got damaged. All we know is it took all day. And unless we get a flat out answer of, hey, we found this there, or they were cut, or something like that, or, this occurred, that occurred, or heck, the heat may have been too hot for it and melted the plastic or the rubbering, unless we get an answer, no one is going to believe a word Xfinity says. Because they, along with Spectrum, along with AT&T, along with anybody that has cable or even DirecTV and Dish Network, if their bosses decide, hey, we want to do maintenance at the last minute, they wanted to do maintenance, all-day maintenance at the last minute, and they know that they haven't had opportunities to let the customers know, they're going to come up with different excuses just to make sure it gets done. So I'm not going to put it past them that they may have caused this without people knowing. When people were not looking, they may have, someone may have been contracted to go and cut the wires or do something to the wires. And thus, that way, they would have an excuse to go down there, and fix them. Because it shouldn't take 8 hours initially for my section and other sections of Newman and maybe Custine and Coast Landing to get service back up. It shouldn't take that long, nor should it take a whole 12 hours in total. Well, not 12 hours in total, but a whole 24 hours in total. To fully be restored. It shouldn't take that long. Because that's ridiculous. But yeah, it's just one of those situations to where if you experience something like this, and you have Xfinity or you have Spectrum or Cablevision or whatever, and it's just out of the blue, you're gonna have your first initial thoughts of maintenance, service disconnect. It's gonna be your first initial thoughts. But honestly, I think you just have to come out and realize that basically your service, the company that's servicing you, they're just probably coming up with a different excuse or a different reasoning to do maintenance and upgrades. And then it's not telling you. They're not. But I just wanted to come on here and talk about that, guys. I know it sounded like I was rambling, doing this like an opportunity, if you know what I mean. But let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below. Like the video. I will be, as you'll probably see on the screen, showing you all the notifications that they gave us throughout. Some were given notifications of, hey, it's going to be restored at 5 in the afternoon, 9 in the evening, 11 in the evening. So, yeah, it's just one of those situations, guys. But let me know what your thoughts are down below. Comment if you like. Ring the bell for notifications. Subscribe to the channel. Like the video. Click on links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube and everything, as well as click on the Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if you've dealt with this in the past as well, and what were your thoughts when it happened. Until then, I'm out, and take care.